Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session with Lisa Sarami. My name is Jessie, and I'm on the Access Elite team that has brought this event to you today. For those of you who have logged on to one of our events before, welcome back. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Access Elite is a health and wellness company that provides on-demand wellness content, same-day prescription delivery, and facilitates live virtual events such as these, as well as much more. We at Access Elite are so glad to facilitate this event and bring a little bit of positivity and connection to your day. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today. Lisa is a marriage and family therapist, meditation guide, and yoga instructor. With that, Lisa, take it away.
Thanks. So I'm so excited to be here as always, and we are wrapping up our dream interpretation series today. So let me go ahead and get the screen shared here. So we're diving in today to, we'll review the 4-step approach that we've been following and that we borrowed from the book Inner Work by Robert Johnson. And we're going to be diving into that 4th step, which is actually rituals. We'll talk about the power of ritual. We'll do a little storytelling about the ceremony of flowers. And when you can't think of what to do as far as ritual is concerned. And all of the dream work we've been doing has been informed by Jungian type dream work. So we'll just do a little summary before we wrap things up today. And I made this piece, I made it a little shorter so that we can actually discuss any dreams that somebody might be working with, or if you're feeling a little challenge as far as like, how can I ritualize this? If you have any specific questions, I want to leave space for that today also. So just as a review, the 4-step approach that is introduced by Robert Johnson in that Inner Work book is the making associations. That's the first step. Then connecting those images to our own inner dynamics, using that to help us facilitate interpretation. And then that 4th step, which we're in today, is incorporating rituals. And I'll leave it there because we'll get into why and what that all means. So rituals, rituals are a really important part of the process. Just like dreams, rituals help us integrate material that's being pulled from our unconscious to our conscious mind. So it's really something physical. And once we interpret the dream, we can use ritual as a way for that deeper integration of those 2 aspects of our psyche. So dream ritual, it means simply doing something to show that you've taken the message that you've received from your dream seriously and that you're planning to do something about it. So we could consider that our dreams give us these like insights to our inner selves and some advice sometimes of what we might need. And then it's up to us to implement that into our lives. It brings the dream from what you've pulled from your unconscious, as I said, to your conscious mind so that you can face it. As I've talked about before, the stuff that we put in the unconscious, it's stuff that we're either not ready to realize within ourselves or we're not really ready to look at. And then when we bring ritual in, it helps us actually take something that's very abstract, like dream, and actually bring it into this 3D physical reality. It brings the dream into the here and the now, into your physical life. So as I said, and as we all know, dreams can be kind of elusive, and they can, we can do things in our dreams sometimes, like breathe underwater and fly and all these really interesting things that might be revealed in our dreams that can feel very imaginal and abstract. So when we bring in that ritual, it gives us the ability to really bring that into our concrete reality. And then it's almost like you're planting a seed into primal matter. It produces new energy. It births something new in our experience of life, in our processes. And it's a way that we can use just little small acts to set up that connection between our unconscious and conscious mind. Ritual, as far as we're talking about it in the context of dream, but we do ritual already. We do it when we get married. We do it when someone passes. We do it in different types of religions. There's so many different types of rituals. We have rituals when we wake up, when we go to sleep. I did a webinar through Access Elite on ritual, where we kind of dove into that. So if you were on there, that this would just kind of anchor that conversation in. And now we're bringing it in as a step for our dream work. So it's bringing it actually into that dream interpretation and receiving the wisdom and then integrating it into our lives that our dreams have to offer. The ritual, basically, another way you can look at it is as a powerful messenger, a messenger that allows us to really gap that bridge. And then that image of the brain and the water, that's the image represents our psyche. So everything on that, the brain, which is also an iceberg, on top of the water is what's in our consciousness. And as you can see, the material that's under the water is what's in our unconsciousness, and it's got much more real estate than what's in our actual consciousness. So one of the powerful aspects of rituals is that it allows us, it becomes a tool for our humanity to connect to our inner selves, to focus, to refine ourselves. Ritual's been used for thousands of years. Many cultures heavily use ritual still. It's something that has gotten washed away a little bit, like it's not incorporated into our culture as it was maybe in the past as much. And there is an impact that has, a bit of a loss when we don't have that ritual and that ceremony in our daily lives. Why? Because it helps set up that communication that we were just talking about, just like dreams help us set up that communication. And ritual and ceremony, it really gives us that opportunity to honor and connect to those deepest parts of ourselves, so we can feel that sense of awe, that sense of worship. And when I say worship, I'm not necessarily meaning in a religious context, but just really more, maybe worship isn't the right word, more like honoring ourselves and honoring our process. Also, when we use ritual, it can really create a container for safety. Because sometimes when we're working with this content, when we're taking those deeper inner dives, a lot can be revealed and it can be scary or uncomfortable. So ritual also contributes to our ability to keep containment and to keep it safe. So I want to talk about, in that book, Inner Work by Robert Johnson, in the chapter that he talks about ritual, he speaks about a dream in particular. And I wanted to just do a little storytelling with that dream. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to read the actual dream and how it was incorporated into an active ritual for the dreamer. Because sometimes it's hard. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Like, we have this dream and we're like, what do we do with that in form of ritual? How do we make that a ritual? And why would we make that a ritual? So here's the dream. This is a dream in a monastery. I am a monastic cloister in a room or cell attached to the chapel. And you'll notice as I'm reading this, as I mentioned back in stage 1, when we're writing our dreams, we want to write them as if they're happening. So I am separated from the people and the rest of the chapel by a grill. Mass begins and I participate alone in my cell. I sit with crossed legs, zazen style, but holding my rosary beads. I hear the murmurs of responses through the grill. The voices are tranquil. I close my eyes and I too receive communion although no one and nothing physical enters my cell. The mass finishes and I become aware of flowers blooming at the side of my chamber, and I feel deep serenity. So for the particular dreamer that had this dream and shared this dream, this was revealing particular aspects of her life and her religious life and her religious practices. She couldn't think of what to do physically to ritualize this dream. So what she ended up doing is she ended up gathering flowers and then taking them and setting them free into an ocean and a body of water. And it's what I want to speak to about this is like it's like the intention and the energy and the power of what's connected to the symbol when we're doing the ritual. So even though she wasn't in a church, she just released the flowers into the ocean, and that was kind of her way of making a ceremony of giving back these flowers to the ocean. And the ocean can represent the unconscious a lot of times in dream and in symbolism. So it was this exchange, and what we're going to talk about that of giving back the unconscious content to our consciousness. And it starts kind of like a dialogue, and then our consciousness will give back to the unconscious, and the unconsciousness will give back to our consciousness. So as she did this physical act, it was symbolic, giving back. She had received these flowers, and that's kind of how she felt, like she had received these flowers and she wanted to give back the flowers to Mother Earth, giving it back to the feminine energy of the sea and of the unconscious. And what was really interesting is, so she left the ocean, she went back home, and she had found that somebody had come to visit her while she was at the beach. Someone that she didn't spend a lot of time with often or didn't see often. And then they decided together to take a drive that day in the neighborhood. And so many things happened. There was all these coincidences that just kept happening. First, they discovered that there was a monastery in her neighborhood that she had no idea existed. And it was just a few blocks away from her home. It startled her because inwardly she had been in that monastery in her dream all night and all morning. And when she walked into this space, this chapel, she felt as though she had just walked back into her dream. It was almost as though the chapel itself and the way that it was decorated was almost identical to what she had had in her dream. And in that chapel, the way they meditated was also with that zazen posture that I had mentioned, that she was also seeing in her dream. So there was all these like connective points, as you can hear and as you can imagine. And that gave her the ability to further integrate the messages and the reflection, and to reflect on those messages as she moved in this parallel field between her dream world and her actual reality that next day. And her awareness was able to give her access to those deeper connections. But we want to bring that awareness in because sometimes it's very subtle, right? And we can make nothing of it. Like it happens to a lot of people all the time. We have these little coincidences and they're subtle, and so we make nothing of it. Others might follow the subtle clues, you know? So depending on where you're at in your own process of life, what I want to bring it back to is just how the ritual gives us the ability to integrate it, to give it energy, so that that reflection that's happening inside can also be be pulled forward outside of ourselves. So something I get a lot when I'm working with people is, well, I can't think of what to do. Like there's something about their dream that's not giving them access to an actual physical act of something that they can do. So it doesn't have to be like what she did, right? Like that was just a story and it was an example, and it just happened coincidentally that some flowers had come in and then it called her to take those to the ocean. And the next thing that happened is it led her onto this journey within her own neighborhood with a friend, and they came across that chapel. But even just lighting a candle, going for a walk, and honoring the dream, it's really an act where you're honoring the dream, you're honoring the message, you're honoring not just the images, but the symbolism that's behind the images that are moving forward into your dream. And we want to allow the imagination to support us in coming up with that actual physical ritual that would be the perfect fit for our dream. There is a little bit of a warning in this one, because sometimes, many people that I work with, when they think of their dreams, because they can be so literal, right? Like something's happening in their life and then those images show up. And we've, in the previous webinars, talked about how those images, really, as we dive into them, we can get to the symbolism of them. So we don't want to be irresponsible with ritual. We don't want to use ritual in a hurtful way, in an irresponsible way, or in a silly way. So a story of that, an example of that could be, let's say you have a dream that you're in a fight. Maybe it's a verbal fight, maybe it's a physical fight, but rather than ritualizing it by going out in your real life and then creating it, what I want to speak to before I speak to the rather than, the other thing that you can do is just that return to the idea that through the interpretation of dream in a Jungian way, through the way that we've been doing it, there is a reflection of ourselves in our dreams. So if we were to get in a fight with someone, we may do those earlier steps to better be able to further identify, like, what is this person symbolizing for me? So last week, I talked about a client who had shared that her friend's head had fallen off and she had picked up the head off the side of the road. But it was her reflection of certain qualities within her friend that were active within herself in that moment. So if you're fighting with someone or something, first taking a look at what is the representation of that thing that I'm fighting with. And it might be useful, rather than to actually go create that fight in your 3D reality, to maybe just write a letter to that internal part that's being represented by that other person that showed up in your dream. We don't want to take something that we've dreamed about and then just like put it into our reality, because it's not always completely accurate and aligned. So just a reconnection to this idea of Jung's way of working with dreams. Dreams are invariably seeking to express something that the ego does not know and does not understand. So we're allowing the dream to become that translator, that in between. And Jung always saw dreams as the psyche's way of communicating the things that are important to us as individuals, important to the value that we give to them, and knowing what's really going on the inside, having that clarity. And the dreams are a way of really getting it. They're an important part of our development of our personalities in the process called individuation. Individuation is the journey we take in a lifetime to integrate ourselves into our wholeness, the masculine energies that live in us, the feminine energies that live in us, so that we finally get to a place where we feel balanced, we feel whole, and we feel kind of satisfied in those ways. And then that repeat that the dreams are really our inner landscape and not always, most likely. There's a very small percentage of time, which I don't think we talked about so much in this series, but where the dream is actually maybe a world dream, or the dream might be speaking to something that's not happening in your inner process, maybe more that's happening in the collective, for example. Maybe right now, definitely not to get into politics or bring anything up, but the energy that's behind what's happening in our collective, right? We might have a dream, and some of that might show up in our dream, and sometimes less than 1% of the time it's not ours, it's really what's happening in the bigger collective that's our container. So this is where I like to always just come back to, like, how should we show up when we're doing dream work? Because it's, like I said earlier, you know, that unconscious content, it's shoved down there for a reason. So it really does require us to be courageous, to be open, to be curious, to slow down, to be patient, and to really approach, almost like, I want to change it from care to like to tender care, right? These images, these things that are being revealed in our dreams, really just, they're sacred, and they should be met with just a very tender touch and willingness, and an environment that supports us to go do those deeper dives. So with that said, I wanted to just kind of leave this last 10 minutes roughly to open it up, because I know a lot of you have been working with your own inner work, your own dreams, your own images, your own symbolism. And I would love to just offer some support if anyone's feeling stuck or just wanting a space to be able to process. I don't know if you all remember, but the first, I think, couple sessions I spoke to how when we're doing this kind of work, when we're doing dream interpretation and stuff, it's a lot easier for me, for example, as a practitioner, to work with other people and their dreams than it is for me to work with my own dreams. So it's really nice to have that reflection and that space to be reflected. So I'll stop talking and I'll just open it up, whether you want to use the chat box or you want to unmute yourself and speak, to just share anything or ask anything that you might want to in reference to dream interpretation or your own dream interpretation.
I have a question, Lisa.
Sure, Jessie.
How do you identify a world dream versus a personal dream?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as you're doing the processing, if you're going through the steps, when I say processing, it could reveal itself. And I also feel that the importance of kind of having that mirror or that reflection or someone that can kind of work through it with you also will help you understand the click that we talked about. I can't remember if it was last week, or I think it was last week. There's a click where we're like, oh, that's it. And if Kyoko would allow me to pick on her for a moment, I think that we had that experience, Kyoko, right? Where we were discussing some of your dream images and stuff, and then it clicked. You were like, oh, that was it. She's nodding her head for those of you that can't see her. So I think it's that charge when you're kind of doing the work of moving through the content and the symbolism and the images, and then it's a felt sense. But
okay.
Most likely it's not a collective dream. Most likely it's going to be an inner reflection.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a question. This is Kyoko.
Hi, Kyoko.
Hi. So I told you I'm making a dream diary.
Yes.
And I still cannot connect those dreams, because most of dream a couple of different scenes. So for my case, what kind of ritual should I do it, or any suggestion you have to improve?
Well,
yeah.
With the limited, because I feel like I have a little bit of, I've had a little insight on a couple dreams that you've shared about, and also kind of you shared a little bit about what's going on in the transition with career and stuff like that. For me, when I think about all of that, I also think about like, I do a lot of stuff with like the moon, the cycles of the moon. And I think about, you know, the fall equinox that we just had, and how there's this continual process in our lives of change, of endings and new beginnings. And that really feels very prevalent in what you have shared with us. So what I would do is I would do almost like a burial and a birthing. And I just ran a circle the other night, and a group of women, we did this collectively. It wasn't in relationship to dream, but ritual doesn't have to be in relationship to dream. You can always do ritual. Like, as I mentioned, I did a session for Access Elite just on ritual. It's a way for us to bridge. It's a bridger. So something's falling away. I would find something physical that represents that. So that could be a business card. It could be, I don't know, like your, what's the word for it? Like a briefcase or a notebook or something that you like affiliate with that past career in your case, right? That, and you have to check. Okay, so step number 4, the warning is when you do the ritual, you're doing something. It's powerful, right? So if you're not ready to cut that cord, don't take that thing I'm about to tell you to bury and put it in, and dig a hole and bury it. You know, don't dig a grave for it until you're ready really to cut the cord. But what I would do is I would find a physical way to put that behind me, whether it would be, okay, so some examples could be a physical object that you want to bury somewhere. It could also be like I was mentioning earlier, you could write a letter to that part of you that was holding that role that you held professionally for all of these years. A letter would be good. You can write the letter and then you can burn it. So what we did, the girls and I did in that circle, is we used some prompts to journal. So we did some writing, and then we had, you know, we're moving into the fall. So I had them pick fall leaves. So they each had their own leaf. And while they were writing and journaling, that leaf was incorporated into that work that they were doing. And then at the end of it, we all took the leaves and we put them in a fire. And then I gave them the opportunity, you know, if they wanted to burn what they wrote or if they wanted to keep what they wrote, that was fine. That's just an example of how, you know, an ending and a beginning is what I'm kind of focused on in this particular example. And then the beginning would be, what are you birthing? What are you creating? You know, you have shared with me some around what you feel like is a deep call and a deeper, coming from a deeper place from you. So what I would actually do is I would take that and then I would go find images online, or I would take words and then Google those words and find images that speak to you. And I would create a collage or a vision board. I would, what we did in that ritual is we each took a flower and then we put it into water. And we did it witnessing each other, and we spoke out what we are wanting to birth into our, you know, next phase, so to speak. Vision boarding, though, in your case, I think could be really, really powerful, because those images, then we can use those images on a board. We can put that board in front of us and give it energy, give it our feelings, give it our requests of what, you know, we want to cultivate. Another way for birthing or for releasing is to work with, just find a container like a box or a vase or something that feels special as a container. And you can call it your God box, your wish box, your worry box, whatever you want to call it. I prefer God box or wish box because then whether it's a concern or a request, I can put it in there and I can feel the intention behind it. And it's almost like you're giving it away. Now, what are you giving it away to? You're giving it away to a higher power. And for each of us individually, that's going to look different. Some of us have faith in particular religious beliefs. Some of us are more in the category of being spiritual. Some of us call it our higher power. Personally, for me, it's nature. So just really developing those connections so that when you're doing the ritual and you're doing the action, it has the energy of a connection behind it, really honoring your process. So so let me just stop talking because I know you've been with us the whole series. So as I say that,
I like your series actually, and I tried to find your chakra series on demand. This is actually the question to Jessie, because I tried to find your chakra series on demand, but I only found the root chakra. I couldn't find the series of 2, 3, 4. So I just wonder if they deleted or how many months will remain. That's another, the question to the elite access elite team. But for you, the question is, so I do kind of ritual things. And by the way, the camera is not, I'm trying to doing the off because somehow it doesn't show it today. So I don't know. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. So the ritual things, I have an imaginary box in my mind. Like I do meditate in the morning. So the meditation, sometimes the negative thought comes up. So I put in the box and then I just burned it. That's the mind ritual things that I do it. And for the physical things that I sometimes write, and every time the negative thoughts comes, it's write it down and I rip off. Or sometimes I go to the church, so they have a ceremony to burn that the paper or notes. That's the things. But my question to you is that works to the unconscious level, or just the conscious level can bring to the unconscious level too for that ritual?
It's like a dialogue between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
The conscious level will be represented by what's happening in the physical realm, right? Because when we're dreaming, we're up in this imaginal world, right? And we want to make it concrete. We want to make it physical. So really, if we look at tradition and we look at the rituals that different religions and traditions incorporate, that's also what they're doing, right? So we're just doing it with dream, because the dream is a conversation that's happening mostly in the unconscious. And then what we're doing is by bringing it into the physical world. There's a guy actually that wrote a book. His name is Stephen Eisenstadt. He comes from a Jungian background. His book is called Dream Tending. And what he does, this is just an example of what he does. His dream images, he takes his dream images, he calls them his board of directors. And he has created, he has like an altar in his room. And he has little things, little gadgets or, whatever they are, little representations of these different symbols or images that show up in his dream. And then he holds meetings with all of his dream images like they're his board of directors. So when he feels stuck and he's seeking more insight, because that's his access to his unconscious and those inner parts of within himself. He now uses that as a resource and has built that over many, many, many years. And his book is really great. It actually teaches you how to do that process. If that might be something that you'd be interested in, you might check out his book. But it feels like it's already in you. So you just want to bring it into the dream. So like with that particular dream, there's an ending, there's a new beginning. I don't think you need to, I know some of it, like I remember the image you said of yourself and one of your legs.
Yes, cut it,
bleeding. Blood. You don't
Yeah.
need to cut your leg. You don't need to create that in your reality. Obviously, you're not going to do that. But going back to like, well, what is that symbolizing? We talked about some of that. You know, it could be a ritual that is reaffirming that you're safe. You know, something that like putting your feet into the sand and doing some affirmations. There's no right or wrong. So as I'm saying all this, what's a ritual that you feel might be something? Do you have any ideas?
About the ritual?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I go to beach and do like earthing stuff, walking beach, and then try to release energy, because putting like an ocean, the negative thoughts or the past experience, didn't work. So that's the kind of ritual things I can still continue to do that. Yeah.
So what you would want to do in relationship to dream, it sounds like that's something you're already doing. So then if you want to bring the dream into it, is you want to focus on the dream specifically when you're doing that ritual that maybe you already do in other ways.
Okay, I will do it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions or images? You know, it doesn't have to be just in relationship to ritual. It could be to anything underneath the umbrella of dreams, dream work, and your own interpretation. We got a quiet bunch.
Well, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're over anyway, so it's all good.
Perfect. Oh, hey, Kyoko. Oh, and to address your question.
Hi, now, yeah.
are.
I had a question to you, Jessie. Yeah.
On the video.
On demand. Yeah. I tried to search Lisa's chakra series. I only found the root chakra, which was series 1, I think, or maybe you had the introduction before that. So all series, how can I find it? I tried to search, is there any keyword I can put in and then the on-demand class can bring it, or you just delete it? I was not sure.
Yeah, we will be uploading all of them. I think we're just still working on it right now. So all of Lisa's chakra series and Dreamwork series will be available through the app. They just haven't been uploaded yet. So we appreciate your patience.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say that.
Okay. So I will keep looking for it.
Yeah, they definitely will be uploaded. So you'll have access to all of them.
I'm sure they're coming soon.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for being patient.
I saw. Yeah, I watched your ritual series too. I mean, one class. That helped too. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think about these Dreamwork sessions throughout the whole week, so thank you for providing so much insight, Lisa. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So if you love today's class, you can sign up for her next one, either on the mobile app or on accesselitenow.com. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out to me directly at jromine@accesselitenow.com. Thank you, everybody. Hope you all have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
See you soon.